2. Welcome back to the SEC Media Days. Frangie along with Brady Ackman, and it's a pleasure to be joined by our friend Will Muschamp, who joins us now, the head coach at South Carolina. How you doing?
Frank, Brady, I'm doing great. How's everything going?
We are going great. Look, I'm not going to bury the lead here. I'm going right to this, okay?
He doesn't know this is
I know, but I'm going. So Smart's on with us yesterday. And Brady teased him up about the 10 guys on the board, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So Kirby goes right to, well, let me tell you what happened later in the day.
No, that's not true.
We haven't told you what he said.
I heard.
The basketball game, and he said he and Hatcher couldn't miss, and you left mad for 6 hours. Now, I need the truth.
He said Hatcher sent him out looking for you, Coach.
I do get frustrated sometimes. That's not true. That didn't happen on that day. We did have some basketball games. There was plenty of times we left the basketball court with a black eye or a bloody nose, a sore back. There was times we didn't speak for about a day or two, but no, we had some great times. We had a lot of fun. Kirby lived with my wife and I, Carol, before we had children in Valdosta for about 3 or 4 months before he exactly to use his paycheck and get an apartment. But we had a lot of fun in Valdosta.
Well, talk about South Carolina, getting there, what it's been like for you, your reception. I get the impression you've been really well received there. Steve Spurrier talks very highly about the fact that they brought you in. Talk about how that's been.
It's been awesome, and you go to all the Gamecock clubs and go around the state and in recruiting. Everywhere they've been very positive, very receptive to what we're trying to do. To build on what Coach Spurrier and his staff did, and they did a phenomenal job. They really did an outstanding job. So we're just trying to build on that and continue to move the program forward. There's a lot of positive momentum from the standpoint of the support we have. Building a $50 million facility that's going to be football only will be as nice as anywhere in the country. Our practice facility is an indoor practice facility. We've got 2 grass practice fields going to be built right there. So it's a one-stop shop for a student athlete to come on our campus and be successful. So I'm really excited about where the arrow is pointed for us.
You've talked a lot about bringing Kurt Roper with you. Just explain why you think that's such an important hire for you.
Well, I think schematically, Brady, we're very similar to what they were before from what they've recruited to by position. There's a lot of similarities offensively. Retaining Sean Elliott I thought was huge for us. This transition was very smooth in the spring for our players, which, my first year at Florida, I felt like I tried to force a square peg in a round hole a little bit with the ability of the guys and what they have done before and then what we wanted to be, and we never really got an identity. And I think in the long term that hurt us. I really do. So I really feel like, being very smooth in the transition. Kurt is a really good developer of the quarterback, a really good play caller, a great staff guy. He gets the big picture of what we need to do to be successful, and that's what I'm excited about.
Well, you were asked in the big room, what do you learn from job 1 to job 2? And so I started thinking about this. 9 of the 14 coaches have been a head coach before, you included. How does the process work for all you guys? I mean, Nick's been 4 places. Do you take, I did this the way I wanted to, but I would have done this differently? How does that go?
Well, I think that is, Frank, you look at your situation, and, of course, everywhere is different.
Yeah.
So they're not all the same. So you look at it and you evaluate and say, I probably could have done this differently. We could have practiced this differently. Could have looked at this differently. A lot of it goes into the recruiting process, type guys you're bringing in. A lot of it goes into your staff hiring. That's a huge part of it. It's getting on the same page with your guys moving forward. So you learn from each experience. I look in the National Football League right now. Of the 32 teams, 1/3 of the coaches have been fired in the National Football League before.
Right.
And they're getting rehired.
That's right.
Why are they getting rehired? Because they're getting hired by football people. They're getting hired by a general manager who's evaluating the situation because, this is what happened. This is what happened in this situation. I got hired by a coach. And Coach Tanner brought up my 3rd year at Florida and said, Will, on offense, you lost 5 or 6 guys that ended up getting drafted in the National Football League. That's why I didn't realize that, but, yeah, that's true. And he said, how do they expect you to be successful? Because that's hard. And, I said, well, I don't say that because I think it's an excuse. And he's like, well, I don't think it is. I've been a coach before. I know how these things happen. So at the end of the day, I got hired by a coach.
In this league, you know what it takes to be successful, obviously as an assistant in 2012, big year in Gainesville. Can any of that experience translate into success at South Carolina, or is that what you're hoping? Can you get South Carolina to Atlanta?
Absolutely. I really believe in a 5-hour radius. We can recruit good enough players to compete for the East every single year. I think that the bar's been set by Coach Spurrier, and he raised the expectation level. So when guys come to our campus, it's not about just competing. It's not about just playing in the SEC. It's not about just going to college to play football. It's about competing to win the East. And that's what we talk to our players about, win the East and win the state. And if we do those things, we've had a special year because now you're in the national spotlight and you got an opportunity to play for a big one. And, we need to get there.
Well, I got to tell you, you're good about not making excuses, and I like that about you. But you got a roster to build here now, and I think the general consensus is it's going to take Will a while to build that roster. I'm just being honest. Do you feel that way? I mean, you've been all over this league. You know good teams.
Well, Frank, I think that we have a lot of unknowns of guys that haven't played on national TV on Thursday night to open the season. I mean, and that's a little daunting because you're sitting there as a coach, as a new coach coming in that's been a head coach before and understands what young men go through and how are they going to respond in those situations. You're not really sure. You're hoping it goes well. So there are some uncertainties with what we have, but Debo Samuel, I think, is a really talented guy. Hayden Hurst, Casey Crosby, they're talented guys. Brian Evers is a freshman. He's going to be a really good player for us. I feel really good about our core offensive line. The quarterback position, I think we have some ability there. I think we've got some guys that can play defensively. Can we continue to come on the secondary? So no question we have unknowns, but I do feel like we've got some talented guys. How quickly they're going to mature, I don't know.
Last thing for me, Will, the dynamic of recruiting. Everywhere you've been an excellent recruiter. South Carolina is a little different. You're going up against Clemson now, who's been on a pretty good run, obviously getting a lot of guys in state. How do you feel about attacking recruiting at South Carolina, and how's that different than maybe Florida or Auburn?
Well, I think you need to project a little bit on some guys, and that's what we've done this year, and I'm excited about the guys we're projecting on, believe me. On average, in the last 10 years, 15 players from the state of South Carolina have signed combined at South Carolina or Clemson. So really, this state's a lot like Louisiana. You can't take Clemson out of the state, but on average, when we were rolling, there was 18 or 19 guys in the state we were going to sign. On the bad years, there was 12 or 14. So we've got to do a good job of at least splitting those states, but we can't get held hostage by it. We're only 4 million people in our state. So we've got to be able to go into Charlotte. We've got to be able to go into the eastern seaboard of North Carolina. A lot of those kids want to play in the Southeastern Conference. There's so many players in the state of Georgia and the state of Florida. It's all about evaluation and getting them on campus. We had 3,000 kids on our campus from June 4th to June 18th. And we evaluated every single one of them and decided if they fit for us and what we were looking for. And they may not have been a highly rated recruit. Keanu Neal wasn't a highly rated recruit. Jared Davis wasn't a highly rated recruit. Antonio Morrison wasn't a highly rated recruit. And they all came to Florida and played extremely well. So that's what will happen in South Carolina.
Final question. You've been in the NFL. You've been all over the South. You've watched your boys grow up as the son of a coach. What have you learned about you? How are you different now? At all? Are you?
I don't know. I guess more than anything, you're a little bit more lighthearted about things and taking things and take things in stride. And at the end of the day, it's really about my wife and my 2 kids and the really close network of friends you have in your life. And there aren't many, I can tell you that.
I can tell you this, Frank, the difference between him and McElwain doesn't give me his post-game meal like Coach used to. Remember that? Coach say, come in there, Ackerman, you can have the post-game meal.
Well, I'm glad you landed there. I think you're going to do great. Good luck at South Carolina.
Guys, great to see you guys.
Will Muschamp, the head coach at the University of South Carolina.